is another episode of Five Things. And I guess if you didn't know what this episode is about, then I can't help you with anything else. But this is Dave from Nerdbox, and I am accompanied by my lovely co-host, Mr. Chetty Charlie Johnston.
Don't ever call me lovely again. You know what's good for you? You'll meet your maker, boy.
All right, on today's episode, we are going to talk about the 5 Westerns that you should watch. And as you know, we're going to talk about a little bit of a backstory. So let's dive into it.
I am inevitable.
A few decades before the Civil War, one of the earliest works in the genre came about in literature. James Fenimore Cooper's The Prairie in 1827 was released. Then Ned Buntline came along a few decades later and wrote a series of Western dime books, and he brought to life the Buffalo Bill character, who was based off of William F. Cody. He was a buffalo hunter, an Army scout, a Pony Express writer, an Indian fighter, and an actor who embellished the facts of the Old West in a show that he performed in called Buffalo Bill and the Rough Riders. Now, real-life William F. Cody can be characterized as the 19th century version of Ric Flair. And he became one of the world's first known real-life celebrities in the entire world, having millions of people attend his show as he toured Europe in 1896. Now, in 1903, the first Western film was made, and that was Edwin S. Porter's The Great Train Robbery. And hundreds of low-budget Westerns were made after that film well into the 40s. Now, 1930, Marion Morrison starred in his first A-list film, The Big Trail. And at the time, director of that film, Raoul Walsh, didn't think that Marion had the chops to be a strong, tough hero in Westerns. Maybe with a name like Marion, sure, I guess. But Marion would go on to change his name to John Wayne. Now, it wasn't until 1939 and several Western films later that he broke through, and that was in Stagecoach. Now we see the 40s and 50s were known for the epic Westerns with films like My Darling Clementine, Red River, Duel in the Sun. And then in the 50s and 60s, we saw Westerns begin to expand to become more serious and realistic. You had The Gunfighter, Rio Bravo, One-Eyed Jacks, The Wild Bunch, amongst other films. Now, themes began to focus on moral depravities and motivations that drove the characters in those films. And during this time, low-budget Italian and Spanish Westerns rose in popularity, along with another icon in the genre, Clint Eastwood, with A Fistful of Dollars, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This style all but killed epic Westerns, and in 1976, that subgenre died out with John Wayne's last film, The Shootist. And it wasn't too long after that Westerns faded into obscurity in the 80s. All right, we are ready to get moving on down the prairie on this episode. And joining us for this episode is from the scene Snobs, and it is the man himself, Mick Manhattan.
Hey, partners.
Woo!
Thanks for having me. And today I am Mick San Antonio because we're talking Westerns, and why wouldn't I be?
You seem like you were specifically mentioning Westerns. If that's the case, then I didn't do my homework, because I gotta tell you, a lot of mine are probably in the spaghetti Western kind of category. I hope that's okay. It's too late now, because you certainly aren't going to let me rewrite it. We got our guest and everything. It's tough shit. But But as per usual, this roundtable discussion starts with our guest of honor. So without further ado, give us your first one, son.
This just snuck in to my top 5. Now, I know this is Westerns that you should watch, but I've kind of cultivated a top 5 that I rewatch constantly. And this is a brand new movie that just came out that I have a feeling I'm going to be watching a lot of, and I think everybody should see it. The Harder They Fall. Directed by Jamis Samuels, The Bullets. It's fantastic. It's an all-black cast. They do a wonderful job in this movie of telling a story that is just interesting from beginning to end, with an ensemble cast that covers every character, and you care about every character throughout, even the evil. Yeah,
That is
Jonathan
awesome.
Majors and
2 number 5s for that one.
Yep. That was my number. It probably could have even been higher on mine, but it's just so new. I gotta lay in there a little bit. But yeah, all the same reasons. Jonathan Majors is becoming one of my favorite actors right now. He is excellent in that. Everyone's excellent, but he is so good.
I love this film. Dialogue is amazing. Acting is amazing in it. Jonathan Majors, oh my God, if he brings all of that to the Marvel Universe, I'm going to be super excited.
Mhm.
But Cherokee Bill,
Oh yeah,
right.
amazing.
Keith Stanfield is, if nobody watches Atlanta and doesn't see how great, like, you know, we have Brian Tyree Henry, who was just in Eternals, and we have Keith Stanfield and Zazie Beetz. They're all stars on the show Atlanta. And from that show, you can just see the genius that is all of them. But like Keith Stanfield, for me, is like a man of like 1,000 different faces. He can play different roles all the way through. And that's a true testament to acting. He and Jonathan Majors are 2 of the best in my opinion.
Yeah, I was so happy to see this movie.
the movie's just great, and it's standalone on its own. So typically, movies that have modern soundtracks, but it's definitely a period piece of sorts, that kind of stand out like a sore thumb. I don't always know if they work. The one that always comes to mind is A Knight's Tale, which by no means is like a fine film, but the soundtrack is the shit, and it works for that movie. But then there's been other movies that do the same thing. This one has like it's obviously it's mostly hip hop, and they use samples from like Western motif sort of music, and it works. And the audio is mixed really well. The other thing is that I find the movies that do that also like to make sure that the soundtrack or the background audio is really fucking pronounced.
Yeah.
And they don't do that in this. They transition very well. It works with the mood, and they're going in a prairie or whatever. They're traveling, and that's something that I really appreciated.
Because the cinematography is pitch perfect in this. Everything looks fantastic. The fight scene between Mary and Trudy at the end is colorful and beautiful and wonderful. But you have this intensely violent scene. One Easter egg that I did really appreciate, and I mentioned in my review, was the fact that the side of the train said C.A. Bozeman for Chadwick Boseman.
Well, so I'm not really a Western guy. Don't
Get out of here,
gravitate to those films. Yeah, don't really gravitate to those films. So my first 2 picks are gonna be a little off the cuff, and I have to say, my number 5 is City Slickers. I think you can throw that into a Western type of comedy, modern age. You got
that's awesome. That's awesome that you picked
it's a great movie.
Yep. You know what, too, with Billy Crystal, man, that guy is just so damn talented. I think we often forget how great and amazing he is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, City Slickers, you got Billy Crystal, dealing with the stresses of life in the big city, and he goes on a 2-week retreat to herd some cattle, and good old Curly has a heart attack and dies, and he's got to finish the job. It was a good movie.
I completely agree with that. I love that choice. When thinking about Westerns, City Slickers had never popped in. So it's kind of refreshing to hear something different, because I do look at Westerns as a different thing, but that is a really cool concept.
Oh, yeah. You ain't for my number 4.
So my number 4 is Tombstone. Tombstone probably has the most rewatchability on this list for me.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on TV, I can stop anywhere. It's a movie that's just, every part of it is truly fantastic. I love the story of Wyatt Earp. I love the gunfight at the OK Corral, and this is the best told story of that, in my opinion. Everybody did a truly amazing job in Tombstone. We all love it. We all know it. And one thing I did want to share is, you know, that he directed 98% of that movie. Kurt Russell did, and
I can believe it.
He took zero credit.
Wow.
George P. Cosmatos got really sick at the beginning, and he was going to direct that movie. Kurt Russell was on board, loved it. Kurt Russell took over, and that's been like an urban legend in Hollywood for a long time, is that he directed the whole movie, but then gave full credit to him. And Val Kilmer, a couple of years ago, verified that and said, no, it was Kurt who did everything. So
I don't think you'll hate me for this, but I have not officially made it through this movie anytime I have attempted to watch it.
Tombstone?
And yeah, and the reason being is because I start watching the movie with the wife, and we've been together since we're 16 and 17, and the movie always ends in something else. So I just have not gotten around to finishing the movie, because when it's on,
you need to walk away from your wife for a few minutes. Finish the movie.
Dave, that's kind of a long movie. I mean, you're finishing out, even if you're third acting it. I mean, that's a 45-minute ritual you and your wife got going on there.
Look,
good for you.
I have to say something.
From 17 years old, his wife realized, like, she sees Kurt Russell and it's over. So Dave just knows at this point.
I could have went that route. I decided not to. I wanted to give Dave the credit. Maybe it's the other direction where it's like Dave's trying to get lucky, and here he does the tombstone dance. He's got the DVD in his hand, and she's like, tonight, okay. All right, my number 4 is probably not going to be a surprise that it's on my list. Maybe where it is, I suppose. But Django. Again, I danced with the spaghetti western thing, and I was like, even my wife was like, but that's in the South. I'm like, I don't think it matters. Django is definitely like a gunslinger type in that movie, and I think it's appropriate. It was considered a spaghetti western when it came out. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, because I think this podcast does a fair amount of jerking off to Quentin Tarantino movies. We all know it's good. Mick, if you want to give your reasons why you think it's good or don't, I don't see how that would happen.
I wouldn't put it on a Westerns list, because I think Westerns are more targeted, and those are Tarantino movies through and through.
It's a good entryway into maybe discovering something maybe you hadn't done before. Truth be told, I never really watched Westerns until I watched Django.
So we're going post-apocalyptic, and we're going with the Book of Eli. So we have a Western type of story there as well. We got Denzel. He's traveling across the country with this hopeful thing, which is the Bible. And we got an excellent performance, as always, from him and Gary Oldman.
Yes. Yeah, that's one for me. Like, I would not think of it as a Western, but it is there's so many movies that are rooted in Westerns, that are retold Westerns. And that is definitely a really well adapted Western movie. Yeah, I like that choice. Like, I would never think of the Book of Eli for a Western list. And that's why I like why it's so out there.
I think it can be perceived as a lot of different type of movies.
Oh,
like
yeah.
There's a religious aspect to it that you can even get. There's a whole bunch of things that come out of that one. So that's a really good and a unique choice. I definitely appreciate that one for sure.
This one is deep rooted in Western culture. Hollywood is Maverick. If anybody remembers, which nobody watching YouTube remembers because it was from the 1950s, Maverick was a television show about two brothers who go on adventures each week. They're card sharks, gamblers that just kind of travel around doing their thing, and they keep getting into trouble wherever they go. Played by James Garner and Jack Kelly. And I watched that with my dad on reruns. That's such a great show. So when this movie came out and I heard James Garner's going to be in it, Mel Gibson's playing Maverick, I was all in. And it's just a fun comedy. It's a fun Western comedy that has the same whimsy and wonder of the West that the TV show was trying to pass off, just like fun adventure through it. And it holds up for me. I can rewatch that over and over again.
Mel Gibson, at the end of the day, he is just so good when it comes to acting, and his range is just so wide. I love almost anything that he is in.
Who doesn't love the show Deadwood from HBO? And like they never ended the show. And then what was it, like 2 years ago that HBO got around and did the Deadwood movie? And it tied up all the loose ends and all that. And I'll admit it's not the greatest movie there ever was, but if you're a fan of the show and it cleans up all that stuff, I put that on mine. I mean, that's another, to me, that was another sort of entryway into the genre, so to speak. And I don't know, Timothy Olyphant, I can't watch him now and not think of him as being some kind of a sheriff. I mean, it doesn't hurt that he definitely plays a sheriff in a lot of things, but I'm just saying, yeah, I don't know. That's a number 3 for me. That's a rewatchable, the whole series into the movie, everything.
I have to put that series on my list of things to watch. Plus, Timothy Olyphant.
The whole cast is just great. That one sticks with me.
That was a show that really built up really well because, like, when Titus Welliver came in, Powers Booth's character comes in and he's like the big bad.
Yes.
But he does not shine until much later in like the 4th or 5th season or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And like he had people that were working for him, like Titus Welliver being one of them, that just shined in each season until it was almost like a video game. You had to go through these guys to get to the big bad.
Yep.
That's good storytelling for you.
Yeah. And the story of the show in general is kind of a bummer too. Like, you ever hear Timothy Olyphant talk about it? It literally just ended from a phone call.
It's the only true Western that I actually own. 310 to Yuma. With Christian Bale and Russell Crowe.
Not the Glenn Ford one? Come on, man.
No, I told you, I'm not a Western guy. I may have the hat, but I'm not a Western guy. There is 2 genres that I will not particularly watch. One is musicals. I am not touching musicals. I'm sorry. You have to force me to watch them. There's only like 5 that I like, and South Park is one of them. But then the other one's Westerns. So it's like, music and West. Fuck it. I'm just staying home.
You did like it, or you didn't care for it?
Yeah, I did. I didn't like Christian Bale or Russell Crowe going into it. So I don't even know why I watched it. I heard a lot of people talking about when it came out back in the Blockbuster days. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a chance. And it was damn good.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I like the movie. I do. And it's not a purist vision of it or anything like that. I do like the original more. It's a little more optimistic. But both did a great job in that movie.
Okay.
Rio Bravo. It's one of my favorites from 1959. It's Howard Hawks' movie starring John Wayne and Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson. I absolutely love this movie. This is a movie where in the first 5 minutes of the movie, they don't say a word, but you know the entire story of what's going on with every character. And it's the cattle baron is trying to take over land. He gets locked up, and now everyone's gunning to break him out. And you have 3 men who are just protecting, who are trying to stand on the side of justice and law. And one of them is a drunk. And it's so well done, so well played. The whole story is just truly fantastic.
Rio Bravo. I'd always knew about there being, I didn't know that was the name of it. There was a Dean Martin Western. Because it's not what you typically expect from that guy. You know, he's the crooner, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He does a good job in this, and he does a good job in The Sons of Katie Elder with John Wayne as well.
So number 2 for mine is really it's the whole Dallas trilogy, but if I'm being honest, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's, you know, you can't have one of these lists and not have Clint Eastwood on it. When I think to like the quintessential Western with the music and the scenery and the pacing and all that, that's kind of the one I think of. The whole series belongs on any one of these lists, but that's the go-to. I think that's, yep. And for the novice moviegoer, or, you know, someone that's not a fan of it, that's also another one of those movies that I think it goes over. It's kind of like the Hulk Hogan thing. Like, you could not like wrestling, but you know who Hulk Hogan is. You could not like Westerns, but you've heard of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I love The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and there's a reason I didn't choose any of those movies, and I'll explain it in my number 1. But love that choice. I love those movies. The spaghetti westerns are fantastic. I purposely kept them off my top 5 list because of like what my number one was and how it connects. But that's a great choice. That's
why I was not sure if the spaghetti western thing would even be welcome, and only because like it's just. But to me, that's the western that I think of. Like I know it, like that whole thing, the whistle in the distance and the quick draw stuff and all that. Like it's so over the top for what it should really be, and I just fucking love it. I just love it.
Yeah, and think of its influence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the influence just stretches everywhere from those films.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2 is fairly new. I don't know if you guys are going to consider this a Western because it's not, with cowboys or anything, but it is News of the World. Tom Hanks is in this, and his job is to carry the news from the world across country. And I saw that movie and I loved it. As a casual fan, not a diehard Western fan, going to see this film, it is great.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm anxious to.
I've never heard of it, so I'll take your word on it.
and it is a Western. I think that's the thing that people don't really pick up on. Like Western doesn't have to be shoot 'em up cowboy movies.
Mm.
I mean, that to me is what I kind of like gravitate towards mostly in when I watch Western. But I think that just fits just as much. It takes place in the West. It's the life of the West.
In this film here, so Tom Hanks, he's got a job to do, and he comes across a carriage that's flipped over that was attacked by Indians, and there's this girl there. So he picks up the girl and he's going to bring her to safety, and she's been raised by Indians. And eventually he discovers who she is when he goes back to town, and he has to bring her to her last surviving relatives, which is her aunt and her uncle. So then he has to set out on his journey to deliver. Very good film. Very good film. And it's Tom Hanks, so what can you expect?
That sounds like a Western to me. That sounds like a guy who is like probably not prepared to take on this endeavor that he's taking on, but he knows he has to do it, whether it's for right, whether it's for wrong. That can be manipulated through like spaghetti westerns. A lot of it were for wrong, but I love that too. Like I love that, the difference of it.
All right, folks. So that brings us to our honorable mentions. Just like the previous 4, we're gonna start with our guest of honor. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I have too many honorable mentions is the problem.
I bet you do.
I'm gonna rattle them off.
Right now, there is a record for the most honorable mentions, and it happened in one of the podcasts for season 2. So I hope I didn't take too much steam away from you, but go. I want to see this happen.
Scares me a little bit. Now I'm like, I want to break it, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't think I am. This was knocked off the list by The Harder They Fall. It's from 1960, directed by John Wayne and starring John Wayne, The Alamo.
My God. Yeah.
We have from 1948, another John Wayne movie directed by Howard Hawks and starring Montgomery Clift, Red River. If nobody's ever heard of it, that is one they should definitely check out. Another John Wayne movie directed by John Ford is The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, also starring Jimmy Stewart. This is a John Ford movie starring Henry Fonda as My Darling Clementine. Then we have Wyatt Earp, Posse from 1993. Once Upon a Time in the West was a Sergio Leone movie. My final one on the list is Back to the Future 3.
Someone did it. I knew someone was going to do it.
So that's 8.
You're right.
What's the list?
14, I think 14 is the record. All right, so my honorable mentions, no particular order. True Grit, and I'm ashamed to say this, and I feel like I'm going to get shit for it. I have never seen the John Wayne version. I'm only going off of the Jeff Bridges version. The Three Amigos.
Oh my God, why is that not on my honorable mentions?
The Three Amigos, like, come on. The Unforgiven, Blazing Saddles, and Wyatt Earp. All right, Dave, any honorable mentions?
Django, which we already talked about. Mm-hmm. No Country for Old Men. I think that kind of falls into that.
That's a Western. Totally, yeah.
I do have a Clint Eastwood on there. And surprisingly, I watched this in high school, but Unforgiven.
Well, we're at our number 1. Spill it. Come on.
It's Unforgiven.
Yeah.
It's Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, and here's exactly why. And the reason I didn't put any of the other Man with No Name trilogy movies on there is because to me, this is an unofficial ending to those. I read this in an article a long time ago, and I have done research on it, and I've written about it myself. Unforgiven, in my opinion, is one of the greatest love stories of all time. Here's why. This man, what we see just in the last 5-10 minutes of the movie, how truly amazing and vicious he is. After 10-15 years of not doing it, after being clean and not being drunk, and he steps in and he shows us how good he truly is, how great a gunman he is, how vicious he can be, and the type of person he truly has been. And then you go back and you think about in his younger years, he was probably 10 times that. He was probably, people knew who he was. They were scared of his name. He gave that all up for love. Even after she died, he made a promise he would not be that again. He would not drink. He would not do that. And then he was forced to. To me, that is true love. If you truly love somebody, to be able to change and be completely different from what you were, that is a wonderful love tale.
All right. Wow. I don't know about you, Dave. I don't even want to say my number one. Like, holy shit. That was great.
Keep in mind,
Wow.
that's what I had to say about my number one, a movie that was both your honorable mentions.
Well, I had the Good, the Bad, the Ugly. That's my number two. I mean, come on. Fucking, this guy's got bookie. I don't even know what. I damn it. It's Tombstone. I can rewatch it over and over and over again. Kurt Russell's amazing. Sam Elliott is fucking amazing. Like, it's just such a well cast movie. The turn at the end, not that it's even much of a turn, but the whole movie, Wyatt Earp is like avoiding, he's not going in whole hog, like trying to do the right thing. And then basically they fuck with his family and he's like, that's it. And he just goes. And yeah, every time I watch it, man, you tell him I'm coming and I'm bringing hell with me. I fucking, every time I get revved up. That should be a cup of coffee in that scene every morning. And you can live probably a very violent life, but you'd be energized. You'd be jonesing.
So my number one is both of yours number 5, and it's The Harder They Fall. Casual Western fan here, it hits on all levels for me, right? The dialogue is amazing from the beginning to the end, like when they're battling the Crimson Hoods, the whole train heist, all of it's just amazing. I just absolutely love that movie. So that's my number one, definitely.
One of the best walk-away shots, speaking of the train heist. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I was like, that is a BA baller fucking move right there. It was such a good story. Mm-hmm. The ending. Can I spoil it? Like, I shouldn't do that, right?
Don't spoil it.
So
my God.
So new.
I know, but it was like, maybe it shouldn't have caught me off guard, but I was like, well, yeah, and
I know what part you're talking about too. I was the same. I was like, what?
I know the same thing. It got me. My wife was in the kitchen and she was working, and that scene came up, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, she was just like, "Everything all right?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, this twist is amazing." Yeah. It was on par. I'm not going to say it was Sixth Sense level.
No, but
it was on par with, like, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, part of that is, I think, too, is that obviously it's a Western, and like 99% of the Westerns are revenge tales. Like, you kind of know that's where it's going, because that's the nature of the genre. Mm-hmm. But to do it like that.
Yep.
And I don't think that even spoils it, because again, if you're a Western fan at all, you know that much. If you're a movie fan at all, you know that much, that it's a revenge tale, because that's just what they do. Yeah. The way they spin it, and yes. All right, folks. Well, that's been our list of top 5 Westerns that you should that we recommend that you should watch. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave your lists in the comments. See you know, if you agree, disagreed, you know, that's your opinion. It's probably wrong, but it doesn't matter because I have a show and you don't. Mick, plug away, man. Come on. What do you got? What do you got going on?
Hey, just go check out thescenesnobs.com. We're on YouTube. We're on all podcast platforms with the Scene Snobs podcast. We have a couple of shows, mixed movie picks, Real Combat. And we have our movie reviews over on YouTube. So just if you're interested, go check us out. Thescenesnobs.com is probably the best place to go because that has everything.
All right, folks. Well, for 5 things, I've been Chetty.
This is Dave.
The fuck was that?
Whiskey.
Hey, that's
When
Western
did you pour that?
But he got the hat.
That's right. Got the hat, got the whiskey.
Have I been missing you sipping that this whole time?
No.
How are you not tipping the hat? It's we're all wearing cowboys. Gotta go.
Mine's like I got a headphone situation happening here. It's not my fault. All right, folks. Bye.
See you later.